All right, nerds. So this week's That Just Happened, or I guess it's been about 3 weeks since we've done one of these, but this week's That Just Happened is Shoresy Boys of the Dragon Pool. All right, so reviews for lazy people. I mean, that's the kind of self-flagellation, but it works, right? So, flagellation. Come on, AI, do the right thing, not flatulation, flagellation. Self-flagellation, but it's more honest than I think I'm willing to admit. I'm not lazy in that I don't digest the thing as soon as I can or whatever, but I am lazy in that it's hard to do a proper review show when you're the only one working on the channel.
That's a fun one, right?
Until we have some sort of budget, that's the way it's gonna go. Anyway, so let's start things off with some TV. We're gonna talk about That 90s Show, season 2. I haven't quite finished it yet, but we're about halfway through, and I keep hearing people talk about how it's not as smart as That 70s Show, which is it's technically a continuation, a Lego sequel series, if you will. Have you watched the first 2 or 3 seasons of That 70s Show recently? It's pretty dumb. It's entertaining. You're not going to get a whole lot of depth out of a show like this. I don't know why people are expecting depth out of this. Even the last good season, the last season with Topher Grace for That 70s Show was not anything like, it's a sitcom. How are you expecting this to be some sort of fantastic whatever? It's fine. If you liked That 70s Show, you haven't watched That 90s Show yet, I don't know why you haven't watched That 90s Show yet. It's on equal ground with That 70s Show. They're both just as inane and vacuous, but still pretty damn funny. So have at it. That's what we got on that one. Let's talk next, oh boy, about Shoresy Season 3. I watched this one while I was away on vacation. And I have said this before, and I will say this again, and I will continue to say this as long as anybody wants to talk to me about Shoresy or really anything Jared Keeso has to say. This show has no right being as good as it is. I'm talking specifically about like the technical side of it, because obviously Jared Keeso is a comedic genius. For those that don't know, Jared Keeso plays Wayne on Letterkenny. He also is Shoresy, both on Letterkenny and Shoresy. He's the head writer, he's the showrunner, he is the brain behind all of this. I've said this about Letterkenny as well, but the technical side of this, like the cinematography of this ridiculous dick and fart joke kind of humor show, is surprisingly good. If you are a cinemaphile at all, if you get into the nerdy side of making video things happen, then you will have a true appreciation for this. Also, if you just like really well done comedy, you will truly have an appreciation for this. Also, if you are a bit of a hockey fan, I think that person, if you like all 3 of those things, your head is going to explode by watching the show. But if you are any one of those things, you will love this show as well. Because I don't really like hockey, but I do love the cinematography stuff and good comedy. So yeah, this show just does not need to be this good, because it would get watched anyway. It would get watched anyway. Why do you need to take that extra time? But please keep doing it, because it's fantastic. And in the vein of keeping on doing it, what the hell is going to be part 2? The big cliffhanger at the end, spoiler alert, I guess, is Shoresy's faced with a choice. He can either coach or be a commentator, and it sounds like he really could go either way. So I'm going to throw my hat into the speculation of he's going to go coach and not commentator, just because it seems more like the character, and also you'll still be able to hear him chirp, which is kind of one of the big draws for this show as far as the comedy is concerned. So yeah, season 3 for Shoresy, really worth a watch. I'm very curious where season 4 is going to go. From there, let's talk about The Boys. It took a while for this one to get really good, and then like the last episode is setting up something that this is an ongoing larger conversation about the more woke properties that we talk about on the channel, and that's a lot of these creators are trying to paint a picture with their eyes closed, I think is the metaphor we're going to go with, because they're really missing the subject. Like, this is the point of what they're trying to do is they're trying to make conservative types look bad, when really they're making like the more fascistic elements of any culture look bad, which is kind of what American conservatives have been against for some time. But the going narrative of people who don't actually pay attention is that conservatives are the fascists. Conservatives are the ones who are going to outlaw everything, and they're going to tell you how to live your life. So that's why you have to vote for progressives and liberals and things of that nature. Or that's why you should side with them. We're not talking about voting here. But when you pay attention to what's going on in the culture, and you see that people who identify as liberal or progressive are the ones who are saying you can't say certain words and you should be tossed in jail for saying words or for posting words on the internet. Not even like heinous words, just words that maybe might hurt somebody's little feelers. That is a jailable offense in the more quote-unquote liberal parts of our world these days. This is not hyperbole. This is very explicitly what is happening right now in France and in England. There are lawsuits that are threatening to take at the very least, take very high-profile people, Elon Musk being one of them, into court over things that have been said on a website that were not threatening physical violence or death or any sort of harm like that. They're just things that make people feel bad, and they're going to be taken to court over these things, potentially jailed over these things. People have been jailed in the UK and in Canada, and I'm sure in other places at this point, over things of a similar nature. And these are the quote-unquote progressive ideals. This is the kind of thing that is being parodied to a certain degree in The Boys. I don't know how this is being so lost, because if you look at what Homelander's doing, Homelander is taking everyone who doesn't agree with the way he thinks. Homelander is taking everyone who is going to expose him as a bad person and killing them by the end of this. I mean, spoiler alert, I guess, but Homelander kills people. Oh, shocker. So by the end of this season, he's killing people who disagree with him or who have dirt on him. I don't think that anyone who disagrees with the quote-unquote conservative side of the argument as far as the socio-political landscape is concerned, I don't think they're being suggested for jail time or anything more harsh than, I mean, some of them, it does get very murky. I'm not saying that anyone is perfect in this argument, because there are a lot of murky situations. There are a lot of bad actors on both sides, in that people on the quote-unquote conservative side are doxing the, again, quote, liberal progressive side. That's a horrible thing to do. That absolutely should not be done. They're also trying to get them fired from their jobs, which is the exact same cancel culture that a lot of the more conservative minded people are trying to preach against. So also not doing good things for the idea or the philosophy, but still, that is about as bad as it goes. While on the other side of the argument, you are definitely seeing violence cast upon people who disagree with the liberal side, the progressive side. You're seeing violence against people who don't agree with that side. Also, you're seeing the doxing, and you're seeing the call for them to get fired from their jobs, and people in the creator space, their advertisers are being boycotted, and etc., etc., etc. Yes, I know, again, Target and Bud Light, there were boycotts there as well, but there's a lot more nuance to those arguments. The larger picture here, though, is the violence that is being brought from one side to the next. I really feel like Eric Kripke is missing the plot for the thing he's trying to rail against, because it's pretty one-sided on the grand scale of things. Like, this is not going the way he thinks it's going. So it's self-parody at this point, I think, and it's unknowing self-parody, which is one of the reasons why I think it's still so good. So yeah, it's a really interesting situation. It's worth the watch. So there's one thing about this season that I think was really unnecessary as far as character development goes. And that's the whole Frenchie subplot. I think that the subplot of him having the relationship with the guy whose family he killed was largely unnecessary to a certain degree, because like there was no need to have him. It didn't further the overall plot that for him to be gay. Conflicted, maybe you take somehow you incorporate Kumiko's storyline into the Frenchie storyline, and that's where that conflict comes from. But if he's gay, then he's gay, and that I think should be the secondary point. Whereas I think really what they were trying to do was make it the primary point, and that's why he was so conflicted, and not because he killed people, but because he killed people who were related to somebody he cares about. And so the somebody he cares about was the primary point, and that I think is muddying the waters with what you're trying to get across. So I don't. It just seemed, I don't know. Maybe unnecessary is a strong way to put it. Conflicting is probably more appropriate. Maybe, I don't know. But there seemed like a cleaner way to do that. Otherwise, like, I legitimately dug basically every episode in this season except for the first one. I think the first one was just Eric Kripke kind of just doing this on screen for a little while and going, look at me, I'm so virtuous and I can signal to you that all of my virtues. Episode 2 had a fair bit of that as well, but that started to course correct back into the satire of corporatism and the satire of celebrity worship, which is what this show is all about, which this show should all be about. Has been up until that point and was after that point. So yeah, Boys is still good. We do have one more season left. They have said that they will end this mainline series as of season 5, but the Gen V series is still going to continue on, and then there's a couple other spin-offs that they apparently have working in the background. So interesting stuff, definitely recommend. From there, let's talk about House of the Dragon Season 2. There has been a lot of vitriol pointed at House of the Dragon as well, because we have a money situation with Warner Bros. Discovery. This is a going theme with our episodes this week, is that how Warner Brothers is running out of money because they're not profitable, because Max is actively bleeding money from their bank accounts, so they cannot do things that they should be able to do, namely show us these battles that they're talking about on this show. I understand the frustration with that, and I definitely am here for the frustration with that, because it is frustrating that we get we get all of this action off screen, and everything that's happening on screen is just conversations by and large. Yes, we do have that really cool mid-season battle between the 3 dragons. Yeah, 3 dragons. We do get a lot of dragon action, which I really, really dug. I think that we're not seeing the forest for the trees, or vice versa, however you want to put that. Because the thing that I think that is setting this apart from OG Game of Thrones is that the story is there still. Like, they're definitely holding on to the point of it. Did we end season 1 and season 2 at basically the same spot? Kinda, yeah, I can see the argument. Did we get some really interesting character development though for our main characters? Yes, I think that is what this season was all about. This was primarily about showing us who these people are when they're not in the public eye. That's not right. Showing us who these people are underneath. That's where we're going. Showing us who, oh God, I almost called her Daenerys. Rhaenyra and Alicent are, showing us who Daemon is, showing us who the children of Alicent, you know, who these people are who are ruling the Westeros. Like, it was all about character development. Was there a lot of bloat here? I cannot argue against that. Was it as bad as everyone is making it out to be? It's definitely not season 8 bad. It's definitely not season 7 bad. I would put this probably on par of season 6 with mainline Game of Thrones. as far as like the plot goes, but as far as the performances that are being given here, this is better. This is the better show. We have the intrigue. I think it's more focused because there's less of an ensemble to deal with, and what ensemble we are dealing with are all focused towards the same issue. Whereas in Game of Thrones, you have all of these subplots that aren't necessarily going towards the same end goal. So that's why we dropped so many of those subplots. While some of those were super interesting, they did not get us to the primary goal of ending the series, which is why they were just dropped. Which is a justification, I guess, for why they were dropped. And, I mean, you could have theoretically made some of those subplots into seasons unto themselves. So we're working with less here as well, because this is one book versus what is right now we're looking at 7 books for the Song of Ice and Fire, whereas it's supposed to be 8, but whatever. We'll get to the last book eventually, hopefully, before Martin dies. Wow. But yeah, the book for this one is done. Martin is actively working with these guys like he kind of was for OG Game of Thrones, but there's only one book that they're working off of, so they're able to focus a little bit better. As far as the cliffhanger that we're left on, again, it's very similar to the end of season 1, so this is still, as much as I think this is better performances, the overall story is making this really difficult to heartily recommend. I would still recommend watching it just because you're getting a really fantastic fantasy story being told to you. The big intrigue here is how they ended season 2. As far as leading into the actual battle, which better freaking happen by the end of season 3, or I'm going to withdraw all of these positive statements. But the battle that we're going towards is, are we actually going to see Aegon killed? A. B. Does Alicent know that Aegon is... spoiler warning, I guess. Does Alicent know that Aegon has fled? And C, if she does know, is she going to die? Like, there is a lot of stuff boiling under the surface right here that better come to a head, or once again, I withdraw all of my positive statements. I still believe that this show could deliver much more heartily than Game of Thrones OG. And I'm going to stand by that until the end of season 3, I swear. So from there, let's talk about Deadpool. Deadpool and Wolverine happened. I've seen it. I've still only seen it twice. I know I let you know that last week in the news show. But 2 times is where we're standing on with Deadpool and Wolverine. If you haven't seen it at this point, you're probably not going to see it. I don't know if anyone is actually legitimately waiting for this to hit streaming. If you are one of those people, let me know that you are in the comments section or over on the socials. And not just that you are, but why you are. Because I think that is an interesting conversation to have. Why at this point are you... Like, this is the revival that they needed over at Marvel. If they can continue with this momentum, they will be back as a powerhouse once again. If they squander this, it's going to be a completely different story to be talking about. It's going to be a completely different conversation to have. I'm very interested to see not only why somebody would not have seen Deadpool at this point, but where we're going after this. We already know that Agatha is going to be garbage. Like, that is kind of without a doubt at this point. But everything post-Agatha, as far as Marvel goes, it seems that Feige rumor might be true. I know we didn't give it a super high likelihood, but like, it kind of looks like they're doing a lot of course correction. So yeah. Fingers crossed that they actually do that. Deadpool is a recommendation. If you have not seen it, go see it. If you are planning on seeing it, you want to wait for it to hit streaming for some weird reason, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. That's, I think I had a note that I wanted to... Deadpool... Oh, yeah. Okay, so the note that I needed to is, I was right. About one of the things, one of the rumors was in the trailer, in the background, you see Wesley Snipes as Blade, and I was right. That is not Wesley Snipes as Blade. That is apparently, though, I don't think it is the actor Sticky Fingers. Actually, no, I've confirmed at this point that is not Sticky Fingers portraying the TV version of Blade, but that is in fact the TV version of Blade. So I win. So there.
All right. So future nerd here editing. There was one more point that I wanted to touch on before we let the Deadpool thing die, and it's a kind of a nitpick. and I don't know, but I got to get it out, and we got to have that out into the world, because I haven't seen anybody really mention this, and that is comic book Wolverine. It is a difficult task for him to get intoxicated. It is very difficult for him to get drunk on alcohol. It happens. It's happened a handful of times that I can recall in the comic books. But it's always kind of a punchline when Wolverine shows up drunk. Somebody will make the comment of, wow, you must have put that bar out of business, or help that bar owner retire or something, because he probably drank the entire bar in order to get drunk. So the fact that this Wolverine's healing ability still allows him to get drunk is kind of a weird disconnect from how they are doing so many things to go out of their way to honor the source material. There we go. Sorry, words. So there was a comic book storyline where Wolverine was responsible for the deaths, in a way, of all of the X-Men. I say in a way because technically speaking, they were his hands that ended the lives of all of the X-Men. But he was being tricked by Mysterio at the time. He thought that they were all villains. So he came back to the mansion from being gone, was being... his eyes were being fooled into thinking he was seeing villains, and so he was just destroying villains is what he thought. And then when Mysterio lifted the veil, as it were, and that's... So there is a better way to have him responsible for the end of the X-Men. Granted, that's probably a little too dark for Disney, but having him just go away to get drunk and coming back and having them die, like, I feel like, I don't know, even though this is supposed to be the worst Logan in the entire multiverse, it just feels like that's incorrect. It feels like that's not how that should have gone down. And like I said, in the comic books, that's not how it went down. So I don't know. That was just one thing. I apparently spaced it off because it wasn't properly in the notes. Because again, with me and notes. So yeah, I think that's the end of it. Just so we'll get back to your regularly scheduled program.
Our next one, though, is Longlegs. The second time I saw Deadpool, I saw it at the drive-in as part of a double feature, and the second movie was Longlegs, the Nicolas Cage, the Silence of the Lambs-ish thriller thing that Nicolas Cage did. So I'm going to, again, spoiler alerts, because if you haven't seen these things, we're reviewing them. So why would you be watching a review if you haven't seen them, or you cared about spoilers? But the comparison to Silence of the Lambs is not fair, because Silence of the Lambs was Hollywood. Silence of the Lambs also was a stronger story. Longlegs is not a strong story. I do, though, think Longlegs is worth watching because it is doing a lot visually. There's a lot of really interesting visual choices that this director made, not the least of which being the makeup that they put on Nicolas Cage. Like, legitimately, there is maybe 5 seconds of footage that Nicolas Cage is in where he is recognizable as himself. Otherwise, he looks like the character he's portraying, which is this weird, like, Tiny Tim amalgamation. So yeah, there's that, but also, like, the cinematography. It is all shot wide angle. I think, like, it's somewhere between 11 millimeters and 15 millimeters, which is gigantic as far as, like, filming a movie is concerned. It's not fisheye. We're not looking at 8 millimeters. It's not like warping when things get too close to the lens or anything, but everything is shot really wide. There are definitely some tight shots. We're getting some close-ups and stuff, but it adds to the creepiness, I think, that everything was shot so wide. And it's kind of a study on having the camera as as less of a storyteller, almost, having the camera be more of a witness to the story rather than having the camera, because, like, if you watch a David Finch movie, one of my favorite directors of all times, Fincher, why do both of those sound wrong? Oh my God, what's wrong with my brain? Either way, you know what I'm talking about. The guy that did Fight Club. If you watch one of his movies, the camera is telling you the story. A lot of what is going on is colored by the way he uses the camera, the shots he makes, the way the camera moves. Very specifically in Mindhunter, the entire first season of Mindhunter is shot on a tripod until the very last episode. There is a scene where one of the main characters basically comes unhinged, and that is the only Steadicam shot in the entire season. So it moving around colors the way you're interpreting the scene. This is the opposite of that. The camera is doing very little to color the scene, which, because of modern cinema, does its own kind of coloration, because when everything's shot so wide in a horror movie, we're programmed to watch the background. And there's only, that I can recall, there's only one payoff to watching the background in this movie, and it happens like in the middle of the movie, but it doesn't stop the rest of the movie being shot super wide. So it's just a really very well shot movie. If you're going for the story, you're going to be disappointed. If you're going to see the art of film as a thriller, that is why you go see Longlegs. I really cannot emphasize that the story, if you haven't figured out the way the story's going to end by the middle mark of the movie, you haven't been paying attention, which is probably because you've been watching all the really cool visuals and not watching it for the story, which is what I'm telling you to do. So congratulations. But by and large, if you're paying even a little bit of attention to the story, you know where it's going, you know how it's going to end. There's no surprise once you get there, but it is a hell of a journey nonetheless. So that is my recommendation for Longlegs. We do have a couple of things. Squirrel Nut Zippers happened since we last did a That Just Happened episode. So if you are into the big band sound, if you like that jazz big band kind of thing, Squirrel Nut Zippers, if you have an opportunity to see these guys live, it feels like you're going up Magazine Street in New Orleans. Like this is the way to experience this kind of music outside of that atmosphere. If you're not in a bar in New Orleans somewhere, this is roughly the second best way to experience this kind of music. These guys rock. I really had a lot of fun. This is not, if you're looking for ska, if you're looking for punk rock, that's not what you're getting with Squirrel Nut Zippers. You are just getting this jazzy, big band, voodoo, streets of New Orleans kind of feel, and they deliver wholeheartedly. That was just a hell of a lot of fun. Squirrel Nut Zippers, must watch if you like that sound. The other concert that has happened since we last spoke was the Stray Cats. I got to see Brian Setzer and Slim Jim, and I'm going to forget his bass player's name. Good Lord. I'm sorry. I know you're gonna hang me out to dry in the comment section, but either way, Stray Cats, Brian Setzer, still freaking whales. He's getting a little old. He's getting a little long in the tooth, if you will, a little on in years, but still. One of the people that we were there with made the comment of he's missing a lot of notes. And I feel like when you play like Brian Setzer does in the studio, and then you perform, because playing and performing are not exactly the same thing, but when you perform live like Brian Setzer does, notes are going to be missed. As long as you know how to cover it up, and as long as you continue playing, you don't focus on the fact that you flubbed a note or whatever, I think that's kind of secondary. The performance was stellar. The opening band was a band called the Midnight Cowgirls. Not exactly what I necessarily would pay money to hear again, but it was absolutely worth the ticket cost to go see the Stray Cats. So if you have the opportunity to see the Stray Cats, probably if you don't already have your tickets for this tour, you're not going to see them on this tour because it's like 7 dates long, but absolutely worth your time if you can. Oh yeah. The last thing that we have for this episode of That Just Happened is a little show called From. We have suggested it a number of times as your TV suggestion on the main channel, or on the main show rather. I am now, because it's back on Amazon Prime, I am now approximately halfway through season 2. Seasons 1 and 3 are for free on Prime. You do not have to pay any extra money to see those 2 seasons. Season 2, right in the middle for some reason, you must rent. So yeah, do with that what you will. You can purchase it as well, so then you'll have it forever, theoretically. But it is a rent situation. So From is a horror series. From is a mystery series. Those two things work stupid well in this show. The basic premise for this show is that there is this little town that people mysteriously happen upon and then cannot get out of. That is the mystery. The horror element is, after dark every night, these other people, who are not actually people, but some sort of creature demon things that look like people, kill them in horrendous ways. And they do not shy away from the gore in this show. This is absolutely not family friendly, so do not watch this with small children. It is very disturbing. If you had small children watching this, they would for sure have nightmares. But if you can handle gore of that level, and you really want a stupid good mystery with your horror, wow, can I not recommend this show enough. I hope to finish it before they take it away from Prime again, because I don't want to have to pay to watch season 3 as well. But once I finish season 2, if that's the situation, that's the situation, because I gotta finish this. I am, like I said, approximately halfway through season 2, and there are so few clues as to the resolution of the mystery behind this show that it's an itch that I must scratch to get to the end, because oh, what is going on? What is this? And it's done. It's very, very, very well done. The lead, I didn't write down any of the actors' names, and I apologize, but you'll recognize a few of them. The lead guy, you'll recognize because he played Mercutio in the Romeo plus Juliet 90s movie from Baz Luhrmann. He also was in Oz. He was the wheelchair-bound, the narrator. He was one of the inmates for a little while in Oz, and then his character was killed, but he stayed on the show as the narrator throughout the duration. And then also he was in the second and third Matrix movies. He was one of the operators. I really, really think he's a talented actor, and I feel horrible that I can't think of his name right now, and I should have put it in the notes, but I didn't. Phenomenal job. This guy, really, if he was the only good actor in this show, it still would work because he's that good, but I honestly think they did a stellar job casting this show. Some of them questionable as far as their acting ability, but they are secondary and tertiary characters at worst. So the leads, all of the primary characters in this show deliver, and there is no suspension of disbelief necessary outside of the whole monsters and magic thing. But yeah, I watch From. That is your recommendation. That just happened this week. As far as moving forward, nothing between now and what theoretically should be our next episode next week. But Beetlejuice is coming out very soon, so that's on the docket. We have Everclear is happening very soon. I'm going to see the Lost Dog Street Band very soon. There's another concert that's escaping me, but that's also in the month of September. So we're a few weeks out from the big shows. As far as new TV is concerned, I will be watching The Caped Crusader on Amazon Prime as well, because I really am hoping that the only bad thing about that one is the gender swap penguin. Why the hell would Bruce Timm do that? Was it Tim who made the comment about how Batman doesn't have enough interesting villains? Somebody associated with the production of The Caped Crusader very recently said in an interview that the reason they gender swapped the penguin in Caped Crusader is because Batman lacks interesting villains. And that's a paraphrase, but it's pretty close to the actual quote. So I'm hoping that is the only egregious element of this, because otherwise it looks really good. I think also there's a race swap for Harley Quinn, but that matters less as long as they acknowledge that it's not the same character, because that is where Harley Quinn was created, was the animated show, the original animated show. So if they then change her, it seems like a very strange thing to have done and highly unnecessary, but whatever.
Subscribe. That is all.
But yeah, so that's what's on the docket as far as what is happening soon for me. What is up for you? What have you interacted with over the course of the last month approximately? Also, what do you plan on doing that is going to be nerdy and awesome? Let's have that conversation down in the comments, and then probably you'll see yourself up on the end of the month shout out show, or I might address it directly here in the next episode of That Just Happened, if it's something that also I feel like should be on my docket. So thank you very much, nerds, for joining me for this episode of the Lazy Reviews called That Just Happened. We will see you next time. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here, and that just happened.